welcome to episode 17 of the Cedar Arrows podcast. My name is Rebecca, and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as HappyHomemaker05. I am a Christian, a military wife, a homeschooling mama of 6 teenagers, a knitter and a reader and a tea drinker, and lover of all things cozy and homey. I love to talk about all of those things on this channel, but mostly it's knitting here. It has been a very long time since I recorded, and I am truly sorry about that. But I am thrilled to be back with you and so glad that you are here, and I look forward to catching up with all of you. Things have been fine. I have kept up with posting on Instagram a lot more. It's just been a very full year, and so I think the last time I recorded was around Thanksgiving last year, so it's been roughly 8 to 9 months since I recorded last. My goal is to record every other week or so. So I missed that one by a mile this time. But everybody's been doing fine. It's just been a very, very, very busy year. Probably the busiest year I've ever experienced. Mostly good things. But like I said, I have 6 teenagers, and 2 of them are going to be starting their senior year in high school this fall. And then I've got 2 more that are right behind them, and then 2 more a couple of years behind them. So managing all the schedules has just been kind of insane. So I have tried many times to sit down and record over the last few months. And one time I even did manage to sit down and record, but I never got time to edit. By the time I could finally edit and post it, it was so old, I decided to just start over. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for still being here when I do pop up with a new video. And you know, I always will try to be more regular than just once or every 8 or 9 months, but it might be a while before I can get back to my every other week routine. When I say that I have tried many times, I have mapped out days. I have sat down and written out notes that I could use while I'm recording. I have so many different times tried to do something. I lost my voice. We had plumbing issues. I got sick again. Kids were needing things. Parents needed things. Nothing bad, it's just been busy. And so I've given a lot of thought to, you know, I want to grow this channel, and I want to be more regular here, but my main calling and my main focus at this point in my life is schooling and raising my children and taking care of my home. And that has just been kind of intense lately. So if something has to give, it can be the fun stuff, right? The priorities are still the priorities. But that said, I am very glad to be back, and I look forward to catching up with all of you. And again, I hope to be here more frequently from here on, but we'll see how it goes. Because it has been so long since I recorded, there's just no way to show you everything that I've made in the last few months. So I just gathered a few things from around the house to show, and then I'll talk about what I'm working on now. I have made many things. I was going to check Ravelry and see how many I've completed this year, and I forgot. But I've made a lot of things. I've been knitting a lot. I went through a monumental knitting slump at the beginning of the year, and that was a real bummer. Never had one that lasted that long. And I really missed the soothing aspect of knitting. It wasn't really the thing I felt like doing at that time, but I wished it was something I felt like doing. And so I wasn't really knitting very much, kind of late winter, early spring. But the bug has bitten again in the last couple of months, and I've been back at it pretty much constantly, so that feels good. So I guess I'll just jump into finished projects, and I don't know that I'll be able to get these in the order that they were made, but that doesn't really matter anyway. So I guess I will jump into finished projects. Back in the fall, there was something that I referred to several different times, that I was working on some secret knitting or some gift knitting, and this is probably the thing that I'm most, well, maybe not the most, one of the things I'm most excited to share is a blanket that I made for my husband for Christmas. It is a beautiful sport weight blanket. I felt like at some days I felt like it was never going to be finished, and then I actually ended up finishing it several weeks before Christmas, so that was nice. But it has this lovely diamond motif, and it is long enough for him to stretch out on his recliner and have it cover, you know, from toes to kind of up to his chest. To me, it can go up to my shoulders, I think, when I'm stretched out. And it's wide enough to share. So, so he has always, we joke around a lot. He's always joked about not having had a blanket made for him when he was born. Like that he was suffering because nobody had made a blanket for him when he was born. Because all his siblings, I guess, had baby blankets and he did not. So it was just a sob story that he told me when we were dating, you know, just as a joke. And so I crocheted a blanket back then, or actually I think I just had made a baby blanket that I hadn't given to anyone, so I gave it to him kind of as a gag gift when we were dating. But then he always told me after I started knitting that I should knit him a blanket and that would be so much better. But I don't love working on blankets, and so I decided last spring to start, like if I started early, I'd have plenty of time and maybe I wouldn't hate the process. So I started it, I don't know, maybe April of last year, and worked on it through the spring and summer. Of course, there were days and weeks here and there that I didn't touch it at all, and then days and weeks where it was the main thing I worked on. But he was completely surprised, and he uses it every single evening when he reclines on the couch before bed. So I am so thrilled with how it turned out. It was very exciting to have the idea and follow through and see the finished project in time to give it to him as a gift, and the fact that he was surprised always makes it kind of a bonus. So this is the Arbor blanket, which is a free pattern by Purl Soho, and I used Knit Picks Heatherly Sport in the Atmosphere colorway. It's just a really nice light blue. I usually prefer to work on wool projects. This has a pretty high acrylic content, but I wanted it to be machine washable. I wanted to make it plenty big enough that we could both use it in the evenings if we wanted to, and I just felt like trying to hand wash that was not feasible. So I went outside of my norm and ordered a yarn I had never used before, and I really like the feel of it. It was not my very favorite to knit with during the actual knitting process. I didn't hate it. It's not like squeaky like a lot of acrylic yarns. It is very soft and it has a nice feel to it. I prefer to knit with exclusively natural fibers, but now that it's finished, just holding it, wrapping up in it, it doesn't bother me at all. So that was a big success, and I'm thrilled with it, and he loves it, and so yay. So my next finished object is the Radvent wrap by Ambah O'Brien. I knit this in the 2024 Advent calendar from Heidi and Lana. I enjoyed this so much. This whole project was amazing. The advent calendar itself was such a fun experience. I absolutely love these yarns. This is very much my kind of color scheme right here. The earthy kind of muted tones. I love it so much. And I loved the way it kind of faded from one color to the next. She alternated a solid and then a speckle every other day. It was so much fun. And then the pattern itself was awesome. I really, really, really loved it. It was one of the most fun projects that I've ever worked on. And just the cozy, like it's got, it's got some pretty vanilla, it is pretty vanilla, pretty mindless, but with some shaping. So some, I had some stitch markers that I had to kind of pay attention to where to put increases and that kind of thing. But it was just such nice, cozy, repetitive knitting, perfect for sitting around with the family watching movies, which we do a lot more of around Christmas time. My routine all through December was to get up early. I mean, I get up early anyway, but that was the first thing I did, was open that day's yarn and wind it into a ball, and then throughout the day I would try to knit that entire ball, or that entire section. So I actually finished this on Christmas Eve night. So I don't know that that's how I will always manage to do things, to finish it in the month of December, but it was really, really awesome. So I always try to get my gift knitting done by the end of November so that I can just focus on the things I want to knit, something like the last 2 years with an advent calendar project, or just the things I want to make. Just something cozy that feels nice. So I didn't really have gifts to work on through December, and this was the thing that I knit. I love it so much, and it's absolutely huge. Like I've worn it as a scarf, kind of twisted it up and wrapped it around a couple of times, and it's really warm for that. But it's also just a great wrap, wraps around my shoulders really nicely. It's very long. It's got good depth to it. So it has been just one of my favorite projects ever. I cannot say enough about it. So I got to the end of December, and I just waffled about whether I wanted to do this picot edging. I think the pattern has it written that the edging is day 24. But of course the advent calendar had a whole skein to open on December 25th. So I waffled a little bit about whether I wanted to just do another garter section or go ahead and do the edging. And since the yarn is all a surprise, I decided to go ahead and do the edging on the 24th, because I didn't really know if the yarn for the 25th would look as nice, right up against it. Turns out it is really nice, but I wasn't sad to have it done on Christmas Day. But I didn't want to be done with those yarns. I had so much fun with that project and the yarns themselves that I immediately cast on a little leftovers cowl, which has also been one of my favorite things I've ever made, and I have worn it a ton and I love it so much. This cowl is the Little Leftovers pattern by Telly Bean Knits. The designer is Stephanie Lotven. And again, can you just look at those colors? So for this, by the time I got, I don't know, maybe I started this on Christmas Day, I don't remember, but I had opened day 25 by the time I got to the end of the cowl anyway. So I did, you can see day 24 is that garter section, and then day 25 is this ribbed section. So I've used a little bit of the whole skein for that. So this has all 25 colors. And I just love it so much. I have knit 3 cowls in this pattern. They have all been very different yarns, different yarn bases. 2 of them have been with the leftovers from my advent calendars, and then actually the first one I made was just from some of my favorite scraps. And of course, like any project, it looks like a completely different thing depending on the yarn you use. And so it's not like you're going to have too many of this cowl in your wardrobe because each of them are so different. So I have kept all 3 that I've made, and I wear them all and I love them all, and I'm sure I'll make others in the future. It's such a fun pattern, very potato chippy. Each of the sections are so little. You know, it's almost like with some of them I almost don't want to move on to the next thing when it's time, but I just love the way it knits up. So this is actually, because I don't know if I mentioned this today, but I live in Alabama. Like today it's in the 90s here. I love wool and I wear it even in the summer, a lot less in the summer. But this is much more wearable than that big wrap most of the year here. So I really enjoyed knitting with these same yarns again, but I also really like being able to wear them in a much smaller piece that still shows all the colors. So absolutely recommend that pattern. I love it to pieces, and I think everybody should make 1 or 12. My next finished object is a pair of gloves that I made for my son. These were made from, I didn't even remember to write these. I have notes here so I can remember to mention like the pattern name and the yarns and things. I forgot to put this in my notes. It's Knit Picks yarns. I'll try to remember to put the specifics on the screen here, but it's just a very simple fingerless glove. It's actually got half fingers, not completely fingerless. My youngest son is 13, and this winter he went for the first time with our church youth group on their winter retreat. They do a retreat where they go to the mountains of Tennessee every other year. So he'd been in the youth group for several months already, but this was the first time he'd been able to go on this trip with them, and he was so excited, and he was really hoping to see snow. It was supposed to be snowy. It was supposed to be really cold. They ended up having to come home early because it was going to be so snowy or so icy that they were afraid they wouldn't be able to get out safely. So he missed most of the snow and cold, but that's beside the point. He was really excited to go on this trip, and he asked me a few days before he left, "Do you think you could make me some gloves?" And I mean, who am I to say no? As much as is possible, if my kids ask me to knit for them, I'm going to knit for them. So I pulled these. He picked out the yarns from my stash. These are just some things I had on hand, and I didn't have enough of the green, so we put a gray cuff with it. But green is his very favorite color, and so he was very happy with these. And like I said, he missed most of the cold, but these, he'll be able to wear these forever. So I didn't feel like it was a waste. He was very happy with them. So later on, those projects were all like January, February projects, and then that was about the time, around the time I made the mittens. The gloves was probably about the time that my awful knitting slump started. I loved my Advent projects, and you know, wrapping into January, beginning January. Really enjoyed those things I just showed you. But then sometime in February, I just hit a wall and nothing was exciting anymore, and that was a real bummer. So in an effort to break out of that slump, I cast on this cowl that I had intended to be my birthday cast on in late April, but I decided to cast this on in March because I thought I've been waiting for a long time to make this, and I thought if it will get me out of my slump, it's fine to do that early. Like, the birthday cast on has no rules anyway, so. So I made this in March, and it really did help with the slump, and I love the way it turned out. This is the Vernal Strata Cowl by Emily of Salt City Knits. It is knit with, this is just an undyed yarn that I bought from a local shop that's no longer open. The pops of color are from a mini skein set from So Happy Jane. I absolutely love her color sense. I love her yarns. I want to knit with everything that she dyes. And I've had this mini skein set in my stash for a while, a couple of years, maybe just a year. I had cast them on in a shawl with a blue yarn that I also love, but it just wasn't it wasn't grabbing me. And so I decided to rip it out and put it with this undyed yarn, which just changed the whole feel of the project. And I made them into this cowl instead of the shawl I was working on. So actually, you've seen that shawl because it was my birthday cast on in 2024. And I loved all the colors. I still have the blue here in my stash. But it was really pretty together, but I wasn't sure I would ever wear it. I didn't know that I didn't really have anything in my wardrobe to wear it with. So I ripped it out this spring and reimagined the yarns as something else. And this undyed, can't really tell if it's getting blown out, but anyway, the undyed color with the little pops of the pastels made it more neutral to where this goes with more of my clothes than that shawl would have. So it's always a little bit sad to me to rip something out, especially because that was something I had really been excited about starting, but it had been nearly a year that I had just been sitting. And so I felt like I would get more use out of the yarn and I would enjoy the project more if I bit the bullet and just did the thing. And I'm so glad I did. I love the way it turned out, and it really did help get out of my knitting slump. So some more recent things, like I mentioned, now we are into July. I recently made this scarf, which is the Open Skies scarf pattern by Jemima of Woolenberry. It is a very simple repeat, very memorizable, very easy to follow, and it's just a long scarf with tapered ends. I knit this with Quince & Co. Turn in the Prout's Neck colorway, and I just wanted something that was drapey and soft and rhythmic, and this was exactly all those things. So this was one of the things that helped me kind of get, like, the cowl helped me move past the knitting slump, and this helped me start feeling excited again. Like, I really wanted to just work on this all the time. So that was a very lovely project. I don't have a lot to say about it other than that. It's pretty straightforward, but I love Janina's designs. I have knit several shawls. This might be the first scarf because I'm more of a shawl and cowl person than a scarf person, but like I mentioned, I live in Alabama and it's really hot here in the summer, and so I felt like this very light drapey silk scarf would be a nice thing to wear this time of year, like, with, not all the time, but like you know, on a Sunday dressed up for worship or something. So I have really enjoyed making it. It blocked out beautifully. It actually blocked out a little bit longer than I had in mind. So I have a little marker here that I'm considering taking a couple of inches off the end. My gauge was not exactly, so I didn't weave in all my ends. My gauge was not exactly spot on, and so it ended up longer than I had in mind. Because my gauge tends to be small, I usually have the opposite problem. So I haven't actually worn this away from home yet because I'm kind of debating whether I want to take a couple of inches out or leave it like it is. But I really love it, and I think it's going to be a very nice addition to the wardrobe. One of my most recent finished projects is this one skein shawl designed by Emily of Salt City Knits and Yarnberry. This is called the Layton shawl. I actually got to be a tester for this shawl, which is a lot of fun. This is only the second pattern I have tested. The other one was also one of Emily's patterns, and she's so much fun to work with. So this was exactly the soothing rhythmic thing I needed. I started this in late June, and I think I worked on it over about 2 weeks. It's definitely something you could knit up in a few days if you were really focused on doing that. But I'm trying to focus more on slowing down and enjoying the process. So I wasn't in a hurry. I got it done in time to have pictures, you know, have it blocked and have pictures done by the day she released it, which was my goal. But I just really like it, and I've already been thinking about the next one to knit. So it's a garter stitch shawl, and it just has these repeated bands of lace. It's got 3 different lace bands through the course of the shawl. The rest is all garter. The lace is very simple and easy to follow. So I would highly recommend this one. It's still a new pattern. It's just been like a week, maybe 2 weeks since she released it. But I would definitely go check that out if you're looking for a one skein shawl. I used the entirety of the skein. I started out with, I think, 102 grams, and the last bit you just keep going until you're almost out of yarn. And I knit until I felt like I only had enough left for the bind off, and I bound off, and the tiny amount that was left, my scales didn't even read it. It was a tiny amount, and so it was perfect. You know, I want to either have enough leftovers that I can at least put a square into my memory blanket, or socks, heels, toes, some combination of that for heel, toe, cuff, some kind of combination for socks. But if it's not going to be enough to do something with, then I just want to use the whole skein in the project. And so for me, that was absolutely perfect. That was exactly what I look for in a one skein project. So I love it. It's easy to wear. Of course, I love blue. I wear blue a lot. But it's a really good one skein, easy project. And I think because of that would be a really good gift project. So I will be making more of these for sure. Oh, also, this yarn is, I can't remember the base, but it is from a homespun house, and the color is Scandinavian, and I love it. I wear more blue than anything, and sometimes I think I should mix it up and get something new, you know, try some color that's more outside the box for me, but I usually end up buying blue. Or a dusty pink. I really like that too. I have just a few more finished objects that I want to show. These are all much more recent in the last, like the Layton shawl and these last few were all in the last few weeks. So it feels a little more fresh in my mind. So this, I only have one on the blocker, but they're both done. This is the Springtide sock pattern from This Handmade Life. I have talked about this before, but I love Olivia's patterns. I love everything she makes and designs. Her Instagram account is gorgeous. If you are not familiar, you should familiarize yourself because she's awesome. This is her Springtide sock pattern. I knit it in Knit Picks Stroll in the melon colorway. These are for my youngest daughter for her birthday. This is exactly like, she picked the yarn. Green is her favorite. She loves shorty socks. So I just do a cuff and I go straight into the heel flap for her. This was so much fun to knit. I usually, it's a very small cable stitch. Usually I like to do cabling without a cable needle, but because of the way these are done, I used a cable needle. It moved along more quickly. But they were a lot of fun to make and fun to watch work up. And these shorty socks are so quick. She has the smallest feet of anybody in our house, and she likes the shortest cuff. So her socks, you know, take a minute to make. So her birthday is next month, and those will be her birthday socks. She has, like I said, she picked out the yarn, and she's even seen me working on them. We are past the point of things being a surprise. You know, with teenagers, it's hard to knit surprises for them. So they all know they're getting socks. They all picked out their yarn this year, but they don't get to see the sock up close. So whatever patterning is the only thing that's surprising now, but that's okay. They don't mind. The next thing is socks for my middle son, whose birthday is also next month. This is Knit Picks Felici, and I forgot to write down the colorway, so I'll put that on the screen. But these are very much his jam. He picked these colors out, and he picked out this yarn. These are very much his colors. Last year's birthday socks were a different combination of orange and yellow and blue, if I remember correctly. So this is the vanilla latte sock pattern on Ravelry. It's just a, it's like a garter rib. I can't think of words, but anyway, it's a very easy, very rhythmic pattern. So I really like making patterned socks, but because my sons all like such a long leg, I have to find, if I'm gonna do a textured pattern, anything more than just a vanilla sock, I need it to be something that I'm gonna be okay with spending lots of hours on, because 2 socks this size takes me a long time. So this is one that I don't have to think about. You can just at a glance tell where you are in the pattern, and it's not one of the, like, there have been times when I've made socks for one of my boys and I've been just, ugh. By the time the pair is done, I don't want to make that pattern anymore. This is not one of those. I've made this one many times and I really like it. So I finished these last night, and from here they will go into a gift bag and be ready for his birthday. This is my favorite recent finish. I love her so much. This is a Jemima puddle duck. If you've been around my account very long, you know that I absolutely love Beatrix Potter. And I came across this pattern a few months ago. I just saw the finished object on Ravelry, and it took me a minute to track down the pattern because it was published. You can't buy it on Ravelry. It was published in a magazine. And so, I don't know, it took me a minute to figure out where to find it, or like to track it down. But can you even? She's so cute. So this is the Jemima Puddle Duck pattern written by Angela Turner. She has a shawl that is, has the little paisley motif on it that's done with duplicate stitch. She's got her cute little blue bonnet. Her feet were the most fiddly part of her, but how cute is that? I just love her so much. So I do plan on making a Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. The Angela Turner has also designed other Beatrix Potter patterns, and there are a few, but the next one I'm going to do is Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. I'm really excited about that. So I started this because the cowl ended up not being my birthday cast on. This was what I cast on for me on the weekend of my birthday. But I do great with the knitting, but then when I get to the finishing, I'm not always great about that part. So I had made the doll, I'd stuffed it, it had eyes and beak, but the feet were going to take some time and attention, and then also doing the duplicate stitch on the shawl. It was like every time I picked it up, I was just not in the right headspace, or there was too much going on to really stop and think about it and figure out what I needed to do next. I needed something that I could just pick up without having to think too hard. So this sat almost finished for weeks, and then my mom asked me to help her with hosting a ladies' night out at church, and her idea was to have tea and watch Miss Potter, which is a movie about Beatrix Potter. So she asked if I could bring my Beatrix Potter collection to help decorate, and that was so much fun. That was a blast. But I thought, okay, I have to get that Jemima done in time because she would be perfect as part of the decorations. And of course she was. So maybe I'll add some pictures from that evening at the end here, but if you are on Instagram, you've probably already seen them. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. And of course, at that point, that week, I was kicking myself that I hadn't already finished her and done Mrs. Tiggy-Winkle. But the next time there's a Beatrix Potter party, I'll be there with Tiggy-Winkle in hand. The last couple of finished objects that I'll show, it's funny because I feel like I've been talking forever about my finished objects, and I also feel like there are so many things I haven't shown, but it is what it is. But the last things I'll show are actually crocheted objects. These are tiny little crocheted axolotls. I have a nephew who loves axolotls. They're his favorite animal, and he's got so many, like he's got several stuffies already, but I wanted to knit him a little gift because he'll be coming to town soon, and so that's what I made. This pattern is a free pattern that I found on Ravelry, and once again I forgot to write down the designer's name, but I'll put that on the screen. And the yarn is a chenille yarn that I found at my Dollar Tree. I think it's Premier Yarns. Chenille, super bulky. So these, the pattern says that you can make them in less than an hour, and I'm not always that fast. Like I don't always meet what the estimated time would be. But these I did finish in, I think, less than an hour each. So that was really cool. I hope he loves them. I think they're so cute. So those are a few of the finished objects that I've been working on over the last several months. And now I will show you a few whips. I don't actually have that many that I've been actively working on. I have a lot of things on my needles, and that got worse during the weeks that I wasn't, like I'd start something new and then that wasn't really the right thing. I wasn't feeling that either, and so the needles just kind of piled up. So right now I'm working on kind of working down the things that are currently on my needles. So for instance, my daughter's socks, I had started those several weeks ago, and like I said, they're really quick to make, but I put it aside to work on a gift for somebody and then never picked it back up. So when I finally did pick it up, I finished in one sitting. It was almost nothing left. So I'm trying to just go through my projects and do that. The things that are so close, just get them finished. So there haven't been a lot of things that I've been working on actively lately, but this is the thing that's gotten most of my attention in the last couple of days. This is a sock for my husband, and it's not super exciting, but it's nearing, I'm getting there. I think maybe another inch and a half before I need to start the toe. This is just a plain vanilla sock in Patton's Croy. The colorway is Flax. 4 years ago, I knit my husband the most beautiful pair of socks in this yarn. But I failed to take into account the fact that a 3x3 cable would draw the fabric in and make it a lot tighter. He likes a 10-inch leg, and they're pretty narrow. His feet are narrow. So when I did this sock in this toothy woolly yarn with a 3x3 cable going all the way up, like all the way from cuff to toe on the, like the outside of the leg, he could not get it over his heel. And I had spent hours on these socks, and they were so beautiful, and I was so sad, and I just put them aside, and they sat in my sock drawer for nearly 4 years before I finally pulled them out and ripped them out and started a vanilla pair with the same yarn. So because this yarn is more dense, it makes a denser fabric. It's very toothy. It does not have the stretch that like a Felici yarn would have. So while these were supposed to be a birthday gift for him 4 years ago, they're not really a surprise now. It's just when I get them done, he will get them. So when I finished the first one, I had him try it on and assure me that he would wear it and that it wasn't too tight. I always do a 60 stitch sock for him because he has narrow feet. But because of how thick and dense this fabric is, I increased to a 64-inch leg, and then when I got to the heel, I decreased down to the 60 for the foot. So I think that'll work well. I mean, when he tried on the one, it did. So these, I think I cast this on sometime in April, but things come up like baby gifts and stuff, and I put aside the things that are not as pressing, and then kind of forgot about it. So it's been sitting here in this basket by my chair for weeks without any attention. So that's the thing I'm working on getting finished up now. Like I said, I don't have too much longer before I do the toe, and so this should be done probably by the end of this week. Another project that I actually haven't worked on in a few weeks, but that I'm pulling back out and looking at and thinking I should finish, is this hat. I'm just calling it the Snowfall hat. I took the motif from the Snowfall socks by Tabi Gandee and just multiplied it and put it on a hat. So the base pattern for this hat is the sockhead hat, which everybody knows and loves. But instead of doing just a vanilla hat, I added the motif from the Snowfall socks. So the reason this has been sitting is that I have a large head, and I'm at the point where I have to decide if I want to keep going or start doing the decreases for the crown. So I just need to try it on and do some measuring. But I've had a lot of almost with hats. Like I have a lot of hats. I love making hats, but I have a largish head and I have a lot of hair, and so it's very rare to get a hat that fits just right. And so my goal for this one is to have a hat that I take the time and that fits just right when I'm done with it. So while I was just knitting and not having to think about it, I flew through this. I knit a long brim because that's what I like. But now I need to kind of compare it to my other sockhead hat and try it on and decide how much longer to knit the patterning before I start the decreases. I want it to fit well and a little bit loosely, but I don't really want it to be very slouchy. I want it to, you know, really fit my head well. So because of that, like I was saying earlier, sometimes I just need something I can pick up and not think about. So when something gets to the point where I have to think about it, sometimes it sits and hibernates for a while. But my goal is to have this done in plenty of time for winter. Which, you know, I have plenty of time because I live in Alabama. But it does get cold here, and I do wear hats here, and so I want to have that done to wear this winter. The yarn, almost forgot, the yarn is from Holly Press Fibers. It's this beautiful light blue with darker blue and purple and green speckles. And I've mentioned this before, but the best place for me to record, there's a window right behind my phone, and so I really can't tell how well the colors are showing, but I hope you can see that well. I absolutely love this yarn. It is one of Holly Press Fibers' Narnia colorways. It is the main color from the Care Paravel sock set. The mini skein is a gorgeous solid blue. And like I said, I love blue. So I will definitely use that, but I wanted this hat to be kind of all one color, all one yarn. So I'm not using them together. And so that's living in my Narnia bag. I bought this fabric on Spoonflower years ago, and I just love it. Okay, one last whip for the time being. I am working on some baby gifts. Recently, I was at our local coffee shop with my two youngest boys, who I'm asked all the time if they are twins. They are not twins, but they're very close in build and size and coloring and everything. They're just over a year apart, so you know, they're not far apart, but they're not twins. But somebody asked me if I had twins, if they were twins, and I said no. And we just struck up a conversation, and she told me that she is expecting twin girls. And so I'm working on some tiny socks for her little girls. So, like I said, I was in my local coffee shop. This is somebody that I see from time to time. I don't really know her well, but I figured every baby deserves some hand knits. So I have one pair finished, and I'm making these with leftovers from my advent calendar from Heidi and Lana from 2024. So there's the first pair. I just used a little bit of a contrast for the cuff, and then the speckled yarn for the rest of the sock. And the second pair is going to be the opposite. So I have the speckled band at the top and then the solid color for the rest of the sock. So this is sock number 3 out of 4. And, you know, it will take no time to finish that. But babies aren't due for several weeks yet. But I want to get these done in time that I can give them to her in plenty of time. So I just think they're so cute. They're so tiny. I always knit my baby socks using the Perfect Newborn Sock pattern from Tabi Gandee, and they really are the perfect socks. I wasn't knitting when I had babies, but I have knit them for enough of my friends that I have gotten good feedback. And I am told that they really are the perfect sock that really does stay put. So that's awesome. So that's it for my current projects. I have several things in my knitting plans. Pretty soon my husband is going on a work trip and I'm going to go with him. So what that means is that he will be working while I will be in a hotel and exploring the area around the hotel. And that means lots of time for knitting and reading. So I have loaded up my Kindle, and I've got 3 projects planned to take with me. We'll be flying and in airports all day on the way there, and then another whole day on the way back. So lots of knitting time there as well. So I always have kind of some certain criteria for a travel project. It needs to be small enough that it's easily portable. It needs to be simple enough that I can work on it in public, and, you know, maybe also while I'm reading, because I do that a lot, especially on planes. So I want to be able to knit and read at the same time if that's what I feel like doing. So not terribly intricate, but I also like to have a little bit of variety. So, you know, something that's a little more vanilla and something that's a little less vanilla. I also need it to be enough knitting to last me the whole trip. And of course, no knitter ever really has a problem with that part, because you just always overpack, right? I'm just realizing I didn't pull that yarn out, so I can't show you at the moment, but I'm planning on knitting the Spotlight Shawl by Janina of Woolenberry. As I've already mentioned, I have knit many things by her and I love her patterns. So I'm working all from stash for these projects, and I'm excited to have had 2 skeins that would work for this shawl. Mine will be a much lower contrast than hers is, but I'm excited to see how it knits up. So I'll be making mine with 2 skeins of linen quill from Purl Soho. This is the first time I think I've ever knit with Purl Soho yarn, and I'm very excited about it. I love the way it feels. It's very light, so it'll be good for living here in Alabama. I'm also planning on taking a couple of pairs of socks with me. I prefer to cast on any new project before I get on the plane so that the casting on, the counting is already done. And I also feel like knitting needles look less threatening to someone who doesn't know what they are if there is a project on them. So I like to start my trip with a new project, but I like to have it cast on before I actually leave my house. So that trip is coming up in the near future, and between now and then I will cast all those things on and get them ready to go. And that's always fun. That's my favorite part of packing for a trip. You know, packing clothes and toiletries and stuff is not so fun, but packing for knitting is fun. So I'm still doing book clubs with my kids. It has become a lot more challenging than it used to be because now my oldest two children have jobs. One of them has set days that she works, usually 3 days a week, and the other one works anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, but his schedule is not set, and so we don't know until that week what his days are going to be. So every week we have to kind of figure out, like it used to be set days, you know, we always do this on Wednesday and this on Thursday. And then for a while with the boys, it was Tuesday or Thursday, just depending on what worked better. But now it's every week I have to figure out when can we do our book club. So we do a lot more evenings, after supper, that kind of thing. Tea times have gotten a lot simpler. Like we can't go all out and do as much fancy baking and all of that as we could when our schedule was a little more free, but everybody still wants to do it and we're all still enjoying it. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately in general, not just with book club, but with book club as well. Like I've always known that all these things that I do with my kids as a homeschool mom, being home together all day, every day, I've always known it wouldn't always be that way. I've always known that they would eventually grow up and live in their own houses and we wouldn't do these things the same. But I never thought too much about the transition period. That's where we are now, and it's kind of tricky. It's good. Everybody's, you know, doing really well. Everybody's healthy. There's so much to be thankful for, but it is kind of tricky trying to figure out which things to hold on to and which things to let go of, and of course always trying to be flexible. So for now, book club is something I'm not letting go of. The kids all still really want to do it, and I'm gonna keep doing it as long as they want to, as long as we can. But it's had to be a lot more flexible and a lot more simple. So it's working. We're still enjoying it. We're still, you know, some days it's super simple, like leftover muffins from breakfast. Some days it's scrambled eggs and toast at breakfast time. Some days we still can bake something really special. No 2 weeks are the same, but it's not the table settings and the food that matter the most anyway. So we're still really loving it. The boys and I have been working all this year on reading The Count of Monte Cristo. We probably started it around the time that I recorded last. I don't remember exactly when we started, but we are 90% of the way through. We've been working on it all this year, and it has been so good. I'm really enjoying it. So our format right now, because it's such a long book, a few months ago we started doing things a little bit differently than we had been doing. So I used to just read to them every week at tea time, and we would read usually 2 chapters a week. But the book is so long that we decided for now we're doing 2 chapters independently. Like everybody reads 2 chapters during the week, and then at tea I read 2 chapters out loud to them. And so that's having us, you know, that doubled our pace. We're reading 4 chapters a week now. So that's been really good. We're all anxious to see how it ends, but nobody's in a hurry to finish the book. And I feel like that is the sign of a really good book. Especially when it's, you know, 800-900 or more pages long. The girls and I are currently reading The Song of the Lark by Willa Cather. It's honestly not our favorite. The main character is a little bit of a brat. She's very self-centered. None of us really love her, and that makes it, you know, the book is not one I can't put down. To me, it's not as enjoyable when there's not a character that you're really rooting for, but there has been so much material for conversation. We've had a lot of really good conversation around this book, and that's one of the main points of our book club anyway. So we have, I think, 2 to 3 weeks left with that book, and then we're going to start A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which is one of my absolute favorites, so I'm excited about that. They all know I love it, and they've all been wanting to read it. And there are some heavier content things in it that I didn't want to just hand to them when they were younger, but now I feel like reading it together, being able to discuss those things, I think it's really good timing for them to read. So I'm very excited about that one. And I mean, it's not a drudgery with the one we're on now, it's just not our favorite. It's fine. I guess that is all for now. I am sure there are things I meant to say that I'm forgetting, but for now, we're gonna let it be. I will try to be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I cannot make any promises, but I do think things are going to start calming down a little bit now that we're kind of winding down with a lot of our summer activities. So I'll be back when I can. I'm glad you're here. I am thrilled to be back at it talking with you about all the knitting, and I hope to talk to you soon. Thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you later. Bye.